Hello, this is the Left Space on YouTube, inspired to this by Leakspinner and his excellent reports on the Fukushima nuclear disaster that's currently ongoing. This is Leakspinner's channel, and on the 10th of April he's just reading out this video, and I highly recommend people,
and I'll put a link in the description so you can
take a view of this website, of this video and his website as soon as they can. But he goes through and reads the report, which he also helpfully puts in the link for us below, and it's this Forbes magazine article which was published 7 hours ago in their technology section, not in their news, breaking news or health section, but apparently for some reason Forbes has chose to put this article buried deep in its technology section, describing what would in any other context be global, world-breaking news. Radiation detected in 14 cities in the United States. And if we just take a look at this highlight here, the Little Rock milk sample contained 8.9 picocuries per litre of radiation, iodine, and the maximum is 3 picocuries per litre. So it's almost 3 times higher than the maximum permitted, and they're saying nevertheless that it's still safe because that's a conservative safety limit based on long-term ingestion, and they're saying that they expect this, hopefully they're basing no concerns on the basis of this being a temporary situation. This is no more a temporary situation than flying to the moon. It's just nonsense. I've just listened to a report on NHK World where basically they described the 3 Mile Island cold shutdown, which was over within 10 days, and it took, with no damage to the plant and no catastrophic explosions, and it took 3 years at 3 Mile Island to remove the water that had escaped somewhere and then look at what the rods, and it was all done remotely, of course. 3 years. And that was in a perfect environment of 3 Mile Island, where there was no explosions, no damage, no mass radiation leaks, and certainly no plutonium, which is at reactor number 3 in Fukushima, which the media keep ignoring.
This is the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant in the state of Pennsylvania. It was 32 years ago that a serious accident took place at one of its reactors. Radioactive substances including iodine leaked from the power plant, and children and expecting mothers within 8 kilometers were ordered by the state to evacuate, while those living within 16 kilometers were told to remain indoors. At the nuclear reactor, mechanical failure occurred combined with human error. Cooling water was lost and fuel rods began to melt. This is an experiment of the melting. Heated fuel. Once the temperature exceeds 1800 degrees, corium starts to melt down. To put an end to the accident, corium needs to be cooled. There is a significant difference between Fukushima and 3 Mile Island. That is, at 3 Mile Island, the cooling system was functioning. 2 days after the accident came to light, water was sent in, and 5 days later, it was for sure that the reactor could enter a cold shutdown state. The then governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Thornburg, declared safety 10 days after the accident. Residents who had evacuated could return to their homes.
The key
to lifting the evacuation order was that the reactor had entered a cold shutdown status, no longer posing a threat of releasing radioactivity into the atmosphere. However, even in the 3 Mile Island case, which ended in a short time, post-treatment was not easy. Mr. Ray Barrett supervised the contamination removal work at the 3 Mile Island. The radiation level inside was higher than expected, making it extremely difficult to do the work. Mr. Barrett wore an oxygen mask and a protective suit when going in.
we had
We had a lot of water, 3 meters high at the basement of the containment vessel. Very highly radioactive water. Workers could not stay there for long. After 3 years, they finally managed to remove the contaminated water inside the building and confirm the inside of the reactor with a camera. Images showed large quantities of cooled-down corium. 45% of the fuel rods were found to have melted. Using remote control, all the pieces of highly polluted corium were removed. It took as long as 10 years to complete the cleanup. The cost was $1 billion, more than the construction cost of $700 million. IRSN, the French Institute for Radiological Protection and Nuclear Safety, has been following the events at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. The Institute says that the Fukushima plant will face even more difficulties than 3 Mile Island, since the fuel rods have not been completely cooled down for almost a month. Experts point out that the temperature of the reactors is still high. Though the fuel is being cooled, the temperature remains high. An expert on meltdown accidents says, at Fukushima, melting is of greater scale than 3 Mile Island, which may hamper the cooling down function. If there is too much corium in the inner part, it may not cool down, even if water is used. Fukushima is a very difficult case. Various long-term measures will have to be taken.
And so therefore they're not going to be able to get on top of this disastrous situation for years to come. And the radiation levels are just going to go higher and higher and higher. But if they're already at 3 times above their maximum permitted level in America, we know for a fact that within a few weeks, a couple of months, it will be the same in Britain and across Europe, and then within 4 or 5 months, it's going to be the same across the whole northern hemisphere, and within a year or so, I would have thought, I'm guessing obviously, it's going to be spread globally by getting into the southern hemisphere. This is a disaster which I can't help comparing in my mind to the plague. The situation is truly horrendous, and the media and the governments are playing a softly approach on this, giving no proper context for the dangers that are ongoing. And to be frank, I don't think they're acting promptly enough in terms of trying to address the situation. It will take them a month to get a particular container onto the site of Fukushima before they could start putting water in it. No explanation as to why it will take a month. I mean, I know it's got to be made from somewhere and delivered, but it's part of that month timescale fitting in with normal shipping times. Because government should be treating this crisis on a scale of a war, and it needs massive amounts of resources, commandeering of any equipment and getting it to Japan and getting on top of this problem, because this is a crisis that it's out of control. They can't get control of it. They still haven't got a cold shutdown at the plant. They can't even think about doing the work that will take 10 to 15 years to complete. They can't even think about starting that 10 to 15 year project until they've got a cold shutdown of all the reactors. But they can't get a cold shutdown of all the reactors because they've already melted down. And so earlier on I heard scientists in this thing saying we've got to stop it melting down, because if it melts down it's not possible to cool it down. And now it clearly has melted down. They've admitted that, but they're not then reinforcing that earlier point that once it's melted down it's not possible to cool it down. And I did hear one scientist say that it's only a matter of time before this molten lump at the bottom of one or two or more of these reactors just burns through the entire superstructure and then starts travelling down through the earth. And of course, as soon as it hits the water table, and they've never mentioned how far below the ground the water table is, but it isn't going to be hundreds of feet, it's going to be dozens of feet. As soon as it hits the water table, it's going to be a massive explosion as a result of that. Nothing like a nuclear explosion, but it will be the world's biggest dirty bomb. The Japanese government's refusal to recognise the high radiation levels outside the 30-kilometre voluntary evacuation zone, the compulsory 20-kilometre evacuation zone, the voluntary 20 to 30-kilometre evacuation zone, and everybody outside 30 kilometres supposedly everything's all right. What a joke. Now the media, the Japanese media, has started picking that up a bit more, and I think over the course of the next week, 10 days, the Japanese government will be forced to extend the compulsory evacuation zone out to at least 30 kilometres, but almost certainly to 40, and probably, more sensibly, to 50 kilometres away.
I have over 1300 counts per second. Well, normally it's 30, so it's sufficiently higher here. It's over 2000 counts per second in the car already.
So in the next, I think, about 10 kilometers, we will pass a very reactive spot. So we are here at Tsushima, which is about 35 kilometers from the nuclear power reactor of Fukushima. Radiation levels are really high here. People living here would receive the maximum annual dose in about a few days, 4 days. And that is really unacceptable. People should be evacuated from this area.
The criteria to issue evacuation orders are to be reviewed, but why did this happen? Well, the government's Nuclear Safety Commission has decided that in order to deal with an accident where there is no immediate end in sight, you need a new criteria. So far, Based on the anticipated radiation level in the surrounding area, the government has been issuing evacuation orders or stay indoors order. And right now, we have the evacuation order in the 20-kilometer radius from the nuclear power plant, where 50 millisievert of radiation was expected, and from 20 to 30-kilometer radius is the stay indoors area, where more than 10 millisieverts of radiation was expected. However, this assumption is based on the fact that large amounts of radiation may be dispersed over a short term. However, this accident occurred on March 11th. Already more than 3 weeks have passed. And although the radiation coming out into the atmosphere is on a declining trend, the accident itself has not been resolved yet. So the NSC has decided that using this criteria alone may not be enough. Now they have looked at the ICRP, or the International Commission on Radiological Protections criteria. In an ordinary situation, the general public should limit exposure to radiation to 1 millisievert. That is the criteria. And however, in a severe situation, that limit should be from 20 to 100 millisieverts. But now this is the most severe case. So this should be limited to 20 to 100, and in every period it should be limited to 1 to 20 millisieverts per year. Now this 20 to 100 millisieverts, 20 millisieverts is a level believed to be a level that will not cause a severe radiation injuries. But it doesn't mean that it is okay to be exposed to 20 millisieverts. It is saying that you should limit it and keep it within this. Now how will the reaction of the government change with this? The evacuation and stay indoors zone was established when the government had not much data on the accident. So this was an emergency measure. So of course this in itself was very effective. However, after this, many surveys have been carried out, and it is now known that even outside of this 30-kilometer radius, high levels of radiation has been detected. For example, in the past 10 days, in the stay indoors area, of course I said that the limit was 10 millisieverts, but even in this area, there are areas that has already exceeded this 10 millisieverts. And meaning that over the longer term, these areas may have exposure to radiation more than 20 millisieverts on a cumulative basis. And of course, staying indoors will hamper people's daily lives. Therefore, the NSC is saying that in these areas, the stay indoors order should be changed to an evacuation instruction.
Don't know if people know, but babies and children under the age of 12 months in Tokyo have been told, parents have been told not to give tap water to babies and young children in Tokyo. Apparently it's still supposed to be safe for adults to drink. Do you believe this? Do any of us really believe it? There is a real crisis, and there's, in any other context, radiation in 14 United States cities would be the news of the month, and they would be on about it 10 times a day. They haven't mentioned it at all and buried a report on the technology section of Forbes business magazine. Who are they most concerned about? Okay then, thank you.